Setting up a TNT doubleheader tonight, which includes the season Sixers in Philadelphia, guys. Boston, of course, coming off back-to-back bummers against LA teams in which they blew leads of 18 and 28 points, respectively, in losses to the Lakers and the LA Clippers. Keep in mind, guys, that prior to this stretch, they'd won 10 of 11, so it's all not dire in Boston, right? Overall, this team is moving up. The arrow is pointing upward, not downward. But Kyrie Irving is out tonight because of the knee injury, likely out tomorrow night as they wrap up the pre-All-Star break schedule. Do these last two games now take on a little different complexion heading into the break?
Matt, you touched on something that is very unique to the NBA.
They'd won 10 of 11, so it's all not dire in Boston, right? Overall, this team is moving up. The arrow is pointing upward, not downward. But Kyrie Irving is out tonight because of the knee injury, likely out tomorrow night as they wrap up the pre-All-Star break schedule. Do these last two games now take on a little different complexion heading into the break?
Matt, you touched on something that is very unique to the NBA. Attitudes, emotions, and spirit within the team change quickly, very quickly. Yeah, winning 10 out of 11, what a great run. And then all of a sudden, you can walk into the locker room one day and they look different, the look on their face is different, the energy they give is different, and that team that was so cohesive during the 10 wins suddenly isn't the same team anymore. And you sit there and you try and figure it all out. And sometimes you say, is it combinations? Do I need to play different guys together? What's going on outside of basketball that's affected somebody? Some of the stuff you don't know because it could be agents calling during the afternoon and telling them whatever it might be. Before the trade deadline, it was, you might not be there in a couple days.
Sure.
But all of those things go into a team changing and that chemistry changing suddenly.
How fragile is it, that sort of momentum that they had?
Well, I think it's fragile just because quite often winning masks a lot of problems. And when you're dealing with things as an organization and everybody's trying to find their role, particularly young players who got to be very focal last year, taking them to the conference finals, being asked to take a step back when they haven't been in the league long enough to have any role really, any understanding of sort of their role beyond that, I think it's very complicated. But I always go back to the notion that it's never as bad as you think it is from the outside. It's never as good as you think it is when you're inside. They're up 43-20 against the Clippers the other night, and Kyrie's a plus 15 in 14 minutes before he leaves the game with the knee injury. We'd have a completely different feel if they polish off that game in the way they started it. We'd say, okay, they're fine. They had a little bump in the road, and they're still more the team that was 10-1 in 11 games. Now we're looking at them as, oh boy, they're probably more the sum of all the negative, and that's not true either.
Griff, let's go back and set the table in the playoffs last year. No Kyrie, no Gordon Hayward.
Right.
And this young group that you just mentioned winds up taking them to a great series against the Cavaliers before they get knocked out. Everybody was on a high. Expectations coming back this season was so great because you have two All-Stars returning to the lineup that weren't there for that run. But that changed the roles of the people that had gotten them to that great series against the Cavaliers. And suddenly, guys who were getting 28 to 32 minutes are getting 12 to 14 minutes. All of that goes into the makeup of the team. And that's why it hasn't been the same smooth ride, because people are learning different roles, different amount of minutes. Our coaching staff had to deal with different players and put this all back together again.
This team came within a game of the NBA Finals last year. They're a deeper team now. Even though the record is maybe not what folks expected it to be at this point in the season, is this still as dangerous as any of the other teams in the East?
Oh, I think without question. And the other thing that's lost in all this discussion of their chemistry issues, Gordon Hayward's starting to find himself a little bit. He's been far and away their most productive and efficient player in their last 4 games. If that continues, they're going to feel awfully good about things coming out of the break. The one thing I know for sure is when your team is a little bit spiritually sullied, shall we say, the best thing that happens to you when you come out of the All-Star break is that you get to look at everything with fresh eyes. Guys are rejuvenated again, and I think that will be really important for Brad Stevens because to a huge degree, it's now incumbent upon him to find a way to make this work. They've never had the level of expectation they had coming into this season. So in addition to the fact that Tatum and Brown and Rozier played really focal roles, He got to have a magical mystery tour of a season last year. It's a little different when you come and you're supposed to win.
Right. Spiritually Sullied, by the way, is going to be the title of my memoir.
By the Friar.
Just because I like the phrasing of it. You know, at some point, the Sixers are going to have to start beating the teams in front of them in the Eastern Conference. At some point is the playoffs, by the way. But with the exception of the Pacers, that hasn't been the case so far. And going back a couple of seasons, Philly has now lost 12 of 15, including last season's playoff series against Boston. Opportunity tonight, again, no Kyrie Irving in the lineup and a different Philly team with Tobias Harris out there. Is it important in your mind to start winning these head-to-head games? Just, I don't know, I hate to play the psychological card, but that's where I'm going with this. Just so when you see them in the postseason, you know you can do it.
Look, the coach is going to play off it either way. If you don't wind up beating him at all, he's going to go in and say, we haven't beaten this team yet, and here we are in the playoffs against them. We can beat them, but these are the things we didn't do during the regular season that we have to do now. The other side of it is that you do beat them. You say, look, we can do this. We know that. Look what we did in this game. All the things we weren't able to do in the other two games against them, we did it in this one game. That's our formula for success.
Well, and the other thing that's kind of interesting about this relative to Boston and Philadelphia, Boston's actually been better against the top teams in the East than Philadelphia has by quite a bit. And that's when you take into account the rocky start. So if you're looking at Boston, you can choose to look at one of two different things. And if you're looking at Philly, you can choose to do the same thing. It's just that right now, Philadelphia is playing so incredibly well in those two games with Tobias Harris.
Right.
Everybody is completely blinded by the fact that, of course, they'll never lose again.
Yeah, 2 games now we've seen Tobias Harris in that lineup. What kind of an impact has he made so far?
Well, why don't we take a look at some of the things this young man does as a teammate now in Philadelphia. First thing is he has the ability to make his teammates better. Watch, he takes the ball to the middle of the floor. He looks over. He knows we have opportunity here to go to the right, but he looks that way but understands my big man's on the baseline underneath, so he drops it off for an easy score. He has the ability to take that handoff and attack off the dribble in a half-court set, and my God, my goodness, that's McGee that got
He can do that too.
Yeah, he can. He can rebound the ball, bring it down, and once again, you come over and give him a little drag screen, watch him turn the corner, and guess what? It's McGee again on him. So what's he going to do? Take him off the dribble, come up on the other side, and use the rim as a protector. Here, he's running for a layup, but he realizes the ball is going to the opposite corner. So he backs out behind the three-point line, all by himself, tees it up, and knocks down the three. He does a lot of things. That was a great pickup, I felt, for Philadelphia.
He makes that look easy, the transition with a new team a couple of games in. How many players can do it that quickly?
Not very many, but he's also like a perfect complementary piece who also has high-level offensive skills.
Yeah.
Very often you have to be incredibly ball dominant to be an effective offensive player, and Tobias has always been able to play whatever role a team asks him to play. That's why he's such a safe acquisition when you're trying to really put the pedal to the metal, because Tobias is very accepting of whatever it takes to win basketball games. That's the #1 consideration for him. The thing that I think makes them special with Tobias has less even to do with the offensive side. When he's on the floor right now, defensively, they are enormous. And what's happened is very similar to what happened with DeMarcus Cousins in Golden State. Everybody else got excited and started playing harder. This version of Joel Embiid makes it almost impossible to get an entry pass into the paint.
Right.